Good morning, everyone. It is November 10th, and I'm going to talk a bit about what's going on in Ukraine with regard to the Kherson Oblast and the Russians' retreat from essentially this portion of the region. The Russian command, Sergei Shoigu and Surovikin, have said they're repositioning Russian troops across the river, the Dnipro River, which you can clearly see, to set up defensive positions in this area here. So kind of setting conditions right now, what the Russians looked like for the majority of the last few months in this region, and up to about 3 days ago. Reset the colors, but Russians had about 7 brigades right here, and then they had about 4 brigades right here. Now, the reason I don't think this is a trap is the amount of brigades that they have in the region are not enough to defeat an incoming push from the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have nearly twice as many forces in preparation, getting ready for the assault into Kherson, and also in this effort over here to push downward. So significant force advantage by Ukraine. Now, the problem is why Ukraine hasn't conducted this previously is defensive positions are easier to maintain. So there's a lot of dug-in positions, a lot of defensive positions, and the losses that Ukraine would have sustained were not worth it for Ukraine to try and do an all-out assault on these regions. So what they've been doing is conducting artillery attacks. They've been conducting HIMARS, 777 artillery attacks on the command post areas, which are highlighted there by the tents. This one up here is the 5th Combined Arms Army. Down here you have the 7th Guard Assault Airborne Division, and then also the 22nd Combined Arms Army. And then down here is a reserve headquarters that's near the dam. And they're just kind of holding this area for security because the Ukrainians have essentially knocked out bridges in this region. So the Russians are having to conduct hasty bridging efforts to get across. They're using the dam to get across to exfil from this region. And that's kind of the conditions that we were in previously. The Ukrainians weren't conducting an assault, but rather cutting the supply lines off of Russia, cutting the command and control off for Russia, holding this ground right here completely untenable for the Russians. And that's where we're at right now. Well, not right now. This is where we were at 3 days ago. So as we move forward, kind of keep an eye on what's going on here. So moving to the next day, you can see a very small amount of territory was taken right here by the Ukrainians. Backing it up and moving forward, you'll see that that was about 2 days of fighting. Fair enough. So we're at yesterday we're at the 9th of November. And again, there's a lag time here. So this could be 24 to 48 hours behind what reality on ground is, both for OPSEC and just it takes time for that kind of news to generate. So moving on, same day, you see more territory taken. Back it up, moving forward. You can see on the 9th what was taken. Specifically and key here was this town right here was liberated. That's a key crossroad for handling any kind of movements into Kherson, as well as movements towards Novokakova. So very much a key area was taken yesterday. Moving on, still yesterday, you can see on the edges of either side that there we go. I don't know what happened there. So moving on here, you can see the edges fell to Ukraine there. That's the Ukrainian push downward and this Ukrainian push downward. Interestingly, the Russians are still maintaining a straight line defense here, and they're creating kind of a bow here. When you have a bow here like this, that is not indicative of a trap. That is indicative of you are creating a defensive scenario so your people can get out. That is what that looks like. Excuse me. All right, so clearing this out, moving up a few more hours, more territory taken. You see, this isn't days, this is hours we're talking about moving. More towns liberated. Borozensky was liberated in this last few hours here. And this crosses over into today. This is what's going on today. And these are our updates. Like every couple hours, this is what the terrain is changing and looking like. Big change there. Obviously, you see Ukrainian taking a big chunk here, because the ideal way for them to try and punch through any defenses of this straight line is to try to create a penetrating force and driving a wedge through them. The Ukrainians obviously can't flank there, and flanking up here creates problems as the Russians can just reposition such as that. So the Ukrainians, knowing they have the stronger, superior, better equipped, and better morale force, are pursuing the Russians by just punching straight in, and that's where that came from. Over here, more to the east and north, I guess it would be more north, but anyways, the Russians have kind of changed their bow. It's not that dramatic, it's probably more like that. Change the bow a little bit to continue to block Ukrainian movements. Moving on, let's clear out the thing. Big changes here. Again, interestingly, when you look at what's going on this day, or with regard to what troops are on ground for the Russians still have straight line defenses. I think they're going to hold as long as they can, and then they're holding like this as of right now to probably try to secure this command's exfil out of here. And then, so we clear that, another big chunk taken, another big swath taken. And here we've seen the Russian forces kind of change position here. They have kind of hugged a little bit more downward like this, and then these are positioned more like this right here. Again, defensive positions. This is why I think it is a retreat. It makes no sense for Russia to fall back this far when they supposedly have the superior force, as many just idiot Russian supporters seem to think they have. But the reality is, trying to hold the ground here from a superior, larger, more well-equipped Ukrainian force moving down on them while having no supplies because supply lines have been destroyed by the Ukrainians doesn't make sense. Excuse me. It is absolutely a retreat, and if it wasn't, U.S. and Western ISR assets, the surveillance assets, would be able to pick this up very easily. So this is where we stand right now. So just kind of quickly going back real quick, you can kind of see from the 7th in real time the movements of the Ukrainians as they bear down on Kherson and the Dnieper River. That's like 48 hours. That's how fast this is moving. I don't think this is a trap. We would sniff out a trap very quickly. So that's where we're at.